Amalfi Renaissance is a 1 to 4 player game for ages 14 and up, with an average gameplay length of 60 to 120 minutes, published by Sylex and R&R games. Amalfi Renaissance plays over 4 rounds, or periods, where players will take turns sending out ships to different ports to collect supplies that can be used to discover locations, invited characters that provide bonuses such as endgame points, and or purchase artwork cards that provide immediate bonuses and points. At the end of each round, players must feed their boat crews and score for that round's decree. After 4 rounds, the game ends and the player with the most points wins. To set up the game, let's start with the main board. Place it in the center of the table, and starting in the top left, shuffle the decree tiles and place 4 random decree tiles, 1 in each period slot. When placing, you will notice some of these holes will line up with numbers on the main board, increasing the value of some of these decrees. Next, shuffle and place 2 stacks of private destinations here, and draw 5 and place 1 in each location below face up. Moving back to the top of the board, we will shuffle all art cards together, create a deck, and place it here and reveal 5 cards face up, 1 in each location. Now shuffle the title tiles separated based on color. Then draw 1 dark green tile and place it face up here at the top, and draw 2 lighter green tiles and place them in these 2 slots and set the rest aside. Before completing the rest of the main board setup, let's move on to the player setup. Each player will take a player board and choose a color. Then collect 10 ships, 6 lighthouses, 3 cubes, 1 score marker, and 100 to 200 point token, and a loaf of bread. Place the cubes and the 100 to 200 point token to the side of the player board. Then you will place 4 ships in your bay area, and the remaining 6 ships, 1 in each slot in your shipyard. In your granary section below your shipyard, you will place lighthouses in slots 7 through 12. Now choose the first player. This can be the last person who visited the ocean, and give them the rose wind marker. They will place their bread marker on 3 in the granary. Each player in turn order will place theirs 1 level higher than the previous. So the second player will put theirs on the 4, the third player on the 5, and if a 4th player, they will place it on 6. Now collect the character cards. Separate out the starting hand characters. There will be 6 sets of 6 cards. Each will have a different symbol matching these icons just below the character type on the top right. These symbols refer to possible goals in the game. For example, the private destination cards benefit a player who collects private destinations, whereas a player who chooses the green art card benefits a player who concentrates on that specific artwork type. Now, starting with the last player in turn order, going right towards the first player, each player will choose a starting hand. Once all players have collected a starting hand, they will also collect the matching symbol token to be placed in the top right of their player board. Next, shuffle the leftover starting hands into the main character deck. Now return to the main board and place the shuffled character deck here at the bottom of the board and reveal 4 cards and place 1 face up on each of these locations. And finally, each player will place their score marker in the bottom left corner of the main board next to the score track, and you are ready to begin. The game plays in 4 rounds, with each round having 3 phases. You have an action phase, a feeding phase, and a decree phase. On a player's turn, they can perform 1 action and then pass to the next player. The actions are listed here on the right of the player board. We have navigation, acquisition, discovery, invitation, engagement, and construction. This first player will take their turn, and they will do a navigation action. This action lets them move 1 ship from their bay to an empty dock location identified by this white ship on the main board, or one of the private destinations you own. Once a ship is placed on a dock, that ship will remain there until the end of the round, and no other ships can occupy that location. The main board locations will usually have you pay an amount of bread to move ships from your bay to the resource it is referring to. For example, this player chose this destination. They will pay 2 bread, allowing them to move 2 ships in their bay to the wine resource on their player board. Each resource has a location on your player board, and each ship in the 4 resources, fabric, gems, wine, and wood, are worth 3 resources. However, spices are only worth 2, and that information is written here below each resource. If you do not have enough bread to take an action, you cannot go to the location. But if you have enough bread, but not enough ships, you may send the remaining number of ships you have. With their turn complete, they will pass to the next player. This player will also take a navigation action. However, not all locations have a cost to complete. This player will place their ship here, and this location allows them to place a lighthouse on any available location, including another player's owned private destination. But they must also discard the rightmost artwork card from the main board and shift the remaining cards to the right and draw a new one. The benefit of placing lighthouses has the player immediately expand their granary, allowing them to hold more bread. Also, in the future, if a player, including the owner of the lighthouse, sends a ship to dock at that location, the docking player will take their action. They can pay 2 bread to send one of their ships in their bay to the resource matching the location with the lighthouse. If the location has a wild resource symbol, the lighthouse owner may choose any resource to move their ship to. Or, the lighthouse owner instead could choose to gain a single bread. After placing their lighthouse and discarding their artwork card from the market, the player will end their turn and pass to the next player. Most actions in this game require a type of resource, so in order to gain resources, this player will also navigate to one of these evolving locations. To start, this player will pay 4 bread to move 2 ships in their bay to wood, and they will look at the character market and select a card to place in their hand. Looking at these 4 cards, if you choose one of the 2 cards closest to the deck, you will have to pay additional bread. However, the 3rd card is free, and the 4th card will gain you a bread. The player chooses the card in the gain bread spot and puts that character card in their hand. All other cards will shift right, and a new card is drawn. The player ends their turn, and we are once again back at the first player. Now that the first player has some resources on their board, they can do different actions. They choose to perform the acquisition action. This allows them to purchase an artwork card. There are 3 types of artwork cards: the red book cards, blue painting cards, and the green monument cards. Each of these cards has a cost at the top left of the card. If 2 resources are shown with a slash, that means you need either the number of one of these 2 resources or a combination of the 2 equal to the number listed. These cards provide immediate bonuses, such as points listed in the top right, which you will score immediately, and actions in the center, which you will perform if able. If you are unable, for example, if this symbol allows you to move a ship from your bay to a resource, and you have no ships in your bay, the bonus is lost, but you can still collect the points. Also, like the character cards, artwork cards closest to the deck cost additional resources, whereas the card furthest to the right grants an additional bread. Now, in order to pay, the player will move 2 ships matching the resource on the card down to their bay. In this example, these ships carrying wine will provide the player with 6 wine, 3 for each ship moved to the bay. The cost is only 5, so any extra resource is converted to bread. However, had the cost been 7 wine, and the ships only contained 6, the player would have some choices. They could move a ship from their bay to their dock, including one they just moved from the resource area, if they wish, in order to gain 3 resources of any type, wine in this example. They would pay the 7 wine and collect 2 bread with the remaining resources. No resources can be held, and all resources are used whenever moving a ship from the resource area to the bay. Now, when moving a ship from your bay to the dock, that ship must remain in the dock until the next period, so do not take this action lightly. After their acquisition action, their turn is over and they pass to the next player. This player feels like they might be a little behind, so they decide to move 1 ship from their bay to their dock in order to gain 3 resources so they can take the discovery action. Luckily, there is a private destination that only costs 3 resources. And since it is not in the left 3 locations, it only costs what is printed on the tile. Nothing extra, similar to the way the art cards are. When discovering a private location, you will pay the resources and collect the tile. Score the points in the top right of the tile, and then put the tile in your play area. This location can only be navigated to by the owner of the tile. However, any player can place a lighthouse on it, provided there is an empty space for it. And that ends their turn, and we move on to the next player. This player has 2 ships in wood, meaning he has up to 6 wood resources to spend. He would like more ships in future periods, so they will take the construction action and move their ships to their bay, and pay the 5 wood cost to build a ship and gain 1 bread from the leftover wood. On all player boards next to the shipyard, you will see the chart which refers to how much a ship costs in each period or round. In the first period, it will cost 5 wood for each ship built. In the second and third period, it costs 4 wood for each ship, and in the last period, it costs 3 wood per ship built. Once paid, you will move a ship from your shipyard to your dock. It cannot be used in the period it is built, but will be available in future periods. Also, after removing the ship from the shipyard, you will notice this Pay 3 bread icon. During the feeding phase, it will now cost this player 3 bread to feed all their ships, whereas the other players that did not build a ship will pay 2 bread as listed here. As more ships are built, the cost will increase, and you can gain a bonus after building your 2nd and 8th ship listed below its location. If you have enough resources, you can build multiple ships on a single turn, but you cannot save any resources for future turns. Back to the first player. They wish to take the invitation action. This action allows you to play a character card from your hand only if you can pay the resource cost in the top left of the card. There are 4 types of character cards. You have immediate, identified by this lightning bolt, which provides the player with a bonus once as soon as it is played. Permanent, identified by this infinity symbol, which provides a bonus every time the action listed on the card is performed or met. Endgame, identified by this cross, which has a way to score points at the end of the game. And engageable, identified by this hand symbol. All cards are activated once played. However, engagement cards must be activated by using a separate engagement action. Therefore, you cannot invite a card and engage with it in the same turn. Also, once engaged, you will turn the card sideways to indicate it has been activated for this period. Some bonuses allow you to straighten the card to be used multiple times in a period, and that bonus symbol looks like this. We went over 2 actions just now, the invitation action and the engagement action. But please remember, you can only perform one of these actions a turn, not both. A couple of free actions that can be taken, we demonstrated earlier but did not call out, are the payment action, which means at any time you can move a ship from your resource area back to your bay and cash in the resources for bread instead of using them to pay for something. Another bonus action you can take is to discard character cards from your hand. For each character card you discard, you can gain a single bread as long as you do not surpass your granary hold. Players will continue to take actions until they can no longer afford an action due to lack of bread, if they have moved all their ships to their dock, or if they decide to pass and be done for the round. Keep in mind, once you pass, you can no longer take any actions, but you can still take the actions provided to you by a lighthouse if another player uses a dock that contains your lighthouse. One thing I have not mentioned yet are the title tiles. These are first come first served goals that earn you points upon completing the minimum requirements. For example, the player to complete the Discover title, which means the player must have discovered 2 private destinations, erected 2 lighthouses, and invited 2 character cards to their area, can place one of their colored cubes in the leftmost available spot on the tile and score those points immediately. These tiles vary each game, can only hold one cube color of each player. Once all players have passed, you will move on to the feeding phase. All players must pay the amount of bread indicated in the rightmost position of their shipyard. If you do not have enough bread, you can still use an optional action such as discarding a character card or moving ships from the resource area to your bay or from your bay to your dock to gain bread. If you still do not have enough bread to feed your ships, you must lose 3 points for each bread you are short. Next, move on to the decree phase. Look at the current decree tile and reward points based on only the current period's decree. If any numbers are peeking through the holes of the decree tile, be sure to add those when scoring. Once scored, flip the decree over and get ready for the next period. All players will collect ships from docks on the main board and from private destinations, along with any ships in their dock, and place them all in their bay area. Next, the rightmost private destination will move into the evolving destination spot of the new period about to begin. Move all other destinations to the right and resupply. Discard the rightmost artwork card and the rightmost character card and resupply. All players will straighten any engaged character cards in front of them. And finally, pass the Win Rose token to the left and the new first player will begin. Each round and phase will play out the same way until the end of the 4th period, where you will collect any points from endgame character cards, and the player with the most points wins. And if tied, the player with the most cubes on titles wins. And that is how you play Amalfi Renaissance. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified about new videos. If you're bored now, click this for more games.